Life can be amazing. It can also be frustrating, complicated, difficult, trials and tribulations, ups and downs. You can be elated, you can be depressed, you can be anxious. And I think this time of year a lot of emotions come out for many different reasons. For some people it's an insecurity in their ability to buy gifts for others. For some people we reminisce over lost loved ones or people who passed during the holidays or any time of the year. And what makes some moments of life just seem so overwhelming at times? I think most of us share that. A lot of people don't like to talk about it. People have this idea that they need to have this mask put on where they're strong and they can be there for others and they can always handle themselves in any situation. I've always liked to think that I could be that person one day, and I think that I do pretty well in most situations. But just like everyone else, there are going to be ups and downs. There is no utopia or no utopian mindset. It seems that life throws these curveballs at us, and these emotions are part of our existence. It's not something that we really seek to overcome. But learning how to harness them and have emotional intelligence, as it's called, can be very difficult. And it's not always just the emotional intelligence relating to sadness or lost loved ones or anything really that brings depression, but it can also be anxiety inducing. We consider what we have to do next week, the things that we need to get done next month, next year. Am I late on this bill? Shit, do I have to get this done? It can become so overwhelming at times that people have quite literal breakdowns and psychotic episodes. People can actually snap. And if you've ever seen it happen, it's a scary proposition. When a person kind of loses it, even slightly, it can... benzodiazepines are here for a reason, right? When people talk about Valium or, Xanax, your body actually has natural benzodiazepines in its own receptors, just like you have your cannabinoid receptors, which is why some people find cannabis so useful. But no matter how many drugs you consume, you can't overcome, and you shouldn't want to overcome, the natural tendency for humans to experience and overcome their emotions. It's an important part of the process of growth. I lost my father around this time of year when I was about 15, and so naturally, I think, well, it would be nice to have a dad, but it's just part of my life. It's something I experienced and something I went through, and it's just who I am. But it's part of what's shaped me. And just like most of you, if not all of you, have lost someone important in your life, or many important people, is usually the case, and the older you get, the more difficult that becomes. Your mortality starts to kind of reach out and say, whoa, wait a minute. You're not just 20 years old with your whole life ahead of you anymore. You're 44 years old now, shit, you're supposed to retire in 20 years. Not that I believe in that, social construct of retirement, because it doesn't exist. We want to work, we want to create and build and share until the day we die. But sometimes that can be taken away from us by our own thought patterns. That's because no matter how positive we try to be, no matter how much we reinforce the good times and just try to focus on the positive, the one thing that sets us really apart from other animals, I guess, the one thing that makes it so difficult to be a human is our tendency to see everything at once, or rather our capacity to see the past, the present, and the future, even if it's a construct within our minds. So when we say, well, life is really overwhelming right now, you ask yourself, well, you could be sitting on your couch saying that. But is anything really overwhelming in your direct environment? No, of course not. You're thinking about something you should be doing, or something you have to get done, or I need to finish this, or do this, or it can be even more difficult when you start wondering, what should I be doing? Once you have all the other things complete in your life that you think you have to get accomplished, there's always going to be this nagging feeling that, well, I've got the extra time. I should be building, creating, not just wasting my time watching a show or even writing something down or making a video for YouTube, as I'm doing right now, when I could be doing other things. I know that I get the things accomplished eventually. One of the most beautiful It's the sign of a procrastinator, when you can acknowledge that, well, if I got this done, I'd feel better about it. And that was part of what I wanted to mention. It's difficult to live by society's standards. It's like, it's easy for us to beat ourselves down and say, man, I should be doing this. And look at this guy over here, he's got this and they have this. This is why envy has always been considered a sin, and undesirable in so many different cultures. Is because when you envy others, you will never attain that state of, complete fulfillment, if you will, which is why people keep seeking more. But even living with that knowledge in your mind, that it's not about money, that it's not about possessions, even being content with the small things and the small wins in life, you look around and you see, well, maybe I'd like this, or maybe I could do that. Sure, I don't need money, but man, it would be nice to travel to South America and check out the jungle. And there's a little bit of envy there, sure, for people who can just travel their whole lives and don't have to worry much. But even then, these people have the same problems. I know people who have traveled, and in the end they say they just want a home. They want a place to call their own, because that's another part of who we are. So I'm grateful that I have my home. I've lived here for 17 years. We got very lucky and bought this house at just the right time. And we made it through, and I mean, these days maybe I'd be better off. I'm glad we bought when we did, but if I were to buy it today, I'd be better off renting, because the prices of everything, the way that society, the direction that we're heading, this commercialist society, and how we're all buying into it, and we've all become consumers willingly, even though we saw the signs, we saw where it was going. It's all about the latest iPhone or the new gadget or a great watch, and people think it brings them pleasure, but what it's doing is it's putting us in a position where we're looking to devices, we're looking to information, we're looking to excitement in other places, in other things, rather than within here. And I'm just as guilty. All of us have this problem. It's a short attention span society. We're standing talking with a group of people the other day, and two of them were completely immersed in their phones. And what do you say? You can't say anything. You're like trying to have a conversation. This happens all the time. Wherever I go, there's people who you'll be looking them right in the eye, having a conversation, and they pull out their phone and start typing their phone. And you think, well, damn it, now you see why it's frustrating to people. But that's also, I'm bringing that in because it's kind of an extension of who we are now. It's kind of like pulling out your wallet to say, look at my kids. When I was younger, everybody had the little fold-out wallet things, right? Now everybody just has it on their phone. It's become an extension of who we are to show the kind of person we are. And never have we been more desperate to stand out from the crowd. Through history, people were happy to live in a cookie-cutter lifestyle. The nuclear family. Husband goes to work, and the housewife stays home, and the kids go to school, and everybody's dandy and jolly. It was never the reality. I mean, this was the propaganda, I guess, that we used against each other. It wasn't some wool pulled over our eyes. It was just the reality that there was no perfect situation or perfect family. The kids who appeared to be completely well-behaved were usually beaten with a stick and told to, because kids have no natural tendency to fucking behave for their parents. And I know as a parent. So you learn as a parent to earn your kids' respect, not through fear, and you try to raise them as well as you can. And you try to teach your kids, hey, this world is full of ideas and things you can do, but you're still going to have moments of clarity and moments of depression. And there's always going to be this overburden of stuff that we think about. So if anything, to kind of wrap this up, my message here really is pretty simple. The reason why we feel overwhelmed is often because, if we analyze it, really break it down, it's not because of the situation we're in at the moment. It's because of the situation we've created by thinking about the past and worrying about the future. So, and I've said this probably too many times, but when I was younger, I heard, I was listening to a lecture, philosophy lecture, and the guy said there's a circle of concern and a circle of influence. And your circle of concern are things like whether it be global warming or dying off of endangered species or a catastrophe that might come from the sun or anything that might happen that's out of your control. That's your circle of concern, being aware of it. Then there's your circle of influence, and that's the things you can actually do something about. So my example would be, instead of pointing up at the sky and saying, look at all those chemtrails and the planes are polluting, walk down to the factory down the street and protest in front with the sign, and go to a place where you can see it happening and actually be heard and be seen. In other words, we're fighting causes often that we have no impact on, and that are so out of our control. But there is a circle of influence, and there are groups who impact the world in that way. And so I guess I want to leave on that note. There are people who dedicate their time, their energy, and their resources and finances to fight against tyranny, to fight against corruption as they see it. I'm not going to say they're always correct, because there are plenty of ill-placed ideals, but it's all subjective. Everybody has their own idea of what's right and what's wrong. I think that most of us can agree that, harming others for yourself is wrong, taking advantage of others is wrong. There's some basic premise we can agree on, right? But still, so it's not like everything's subjective. But I think it's important that we look at our own lives, and if there was any takeaway from this, which it would be I'm just trying to give other people some sort of a baseline to remember. Bring yourself back down to earth, right? And whenever I say things like that, I think, well, that kind of sounds like I'm patronizing, like, I'm not saying get yourself to the level where I am, because I'm talking to myself too. I need to get down there to that place. I have let my thoughts get away from too far, and that's why I share shit, because sometimes I'm affected by the things I'm talking about too, obviously, or else it wouldn't concern me, right? So I'm like, well, fuck, why do I seek altered states? And why do I feel like life is overwhelming sometimes? And why don't I work harder towards building a huge business, or doing this or doing that? And why do I let things fall apart? Why do I let chaos reign supreme in my life sometimes? But I'm not unhappy. And that's the thing. I'm trying to live to my fullest ideal, but it's just a complicated thing, because sometimes the person we want to be is not compatible or conducive with the life we need to live. And I'll reiterate that. Sometimes who we want to be is not possible at the moment because of our situation, basically. And as a parent, there's no better example. I chose to be a father and have a family, and therefore I'm going to do anything I can for my kids while they're growing up. Once they're out of the house and they're on their own, I'm still going to love them. I'm still going to help them any way I can. That's what a parent does, in my opinion. There are other parents who don't give a shit about their kids, who leave their obligation and just say, oh, well, I'm going to go off and leave my wife with 3 kids. The deadbeat dad syndrome. Hey, everybody has unique circumstances as to why they do what they do. And some people just can't handle it. But I'm trying to live up to my responsibilities that I chose. And I'm mentioning that because it's fulfilling to me to know that even though my wife and I could be off traveling the world by ourselves and never have kids, I'm not an anti-natalist. That's an actual thing, antinatalism. People who say, oh, well, you should never have kids because the world's too overpopulated. All I can say about that is that that is a direct projection of your own insecurities of your own life on others. The idea that a person can say others should not have kids because of what these people have done, or how many kids these people have had, or look at this country, starvation, pestilence, chaos, war, murder, it's just part of human life. But, nobody has the right to tell others they shouldn't have kids. But that's for another story altogether. It's fulfilling to make sure, for me to know that I'm putting children into this world that actually have some sort of a semblance of what I think is right and wrong, at least. And hoping that they'll go on to spread some sort of a understanding of how to handle this world, because it's very complicated. It's very difficult. And if we don't build a system of understanding it, then we can't get anywhere. But the minute we do that, we become attached to dogma and thoughts, whether it's political, religious, parenting, otherwise, It's a confusing world to live in. And if we can't laugh at ourselves and laugh at each other, then we're really going to miss the point, I think, because it's over in a flash. So, anyhow, that's my thought for the day. I hope y'all are having a wonderful one. And I'll talk to you soon. Be well. Do something nice for yourself. Do something nice for someone else. Enjoy the holiday. Make it the most you can, It's hard sometimes, man. I get it. I do. We're all suffering together, peeps. Talk to you later. Well, we're also all elated together, so, I shouldn't leave it on that note. Be well.